Rob, the Cowboys, team in Philly's division, Philadelphia rival, lost 31-28 to the Green Bay Packers, who were struggling, had lost 5 straight.
Looked terrible, Chris. Looked terrible.
And Rob, I'm sure you saw, like, and I'm not blaming him. I mean, he's a human being. Did you see the way Mike McCarthy was strutting around before the game? Like, and again, I'm not even saying this in a negative way. I kind of actually like McCarthy. I know he's got his shortcomings as a coach, but you could tell he thought, we about to come in here and mollywop these boys.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
And he was going to love every minute of it. They ran me out. I won you a Super Bowl. They ran me out on a rail after 13 years and then basically told everybody I couldn't coach. Remember, he had to sit out a year, Chris? Nobody hired him. He thought he was in line for a job or two, and nothing came of it. And then the Cowboys came calling. But anyway, I think you're right. He thought, oh, yeah, I'm going to get my comeuppance.
Right.
Green Bay's going to get that comeuppance.
Yeah. Now, let's start here. And I got a bigger takeaway to share as we go along. But what'd you think about the 4th down and 3 call? In overtime, they went for it instead of kicking a 53-yard field goal.
If they don't believe in the kicker, and I guess that's what it was. I mean,
and McCarthy, I think Hoosh may have said it, knew the wind.
Right. And if we don't believe it, right. He's been there 13 years, Chris, and you got to kind of factor in Green Bay and what goes on there.
Right.
I mean, it wound up hurting them. But, like when you really think about it, in the fourth quarter, Chris, you know how many yards they had in the fourth quarter? 47 yards.
Well,
47 yards, Chris, in the fourth quarter. That's the game.
To your point, I didn't have a huge problem with the 4th and 3. I was fine with it. Anybody who does have a huge problem with it, you still got to admit, that's not why they lost.
No.
You're up 28-14 that late in the game. There's no excuse for you not to win.
We already gave the record. What is the record, Chris? 195-0.
There it is.
195-0, including playoffs.
And I'm going to say this, Rob. They lost because, like, the penalties in that last drive we're talking about in overtime, Tony Pollard had a 9-yard run. Negated because the rookie wide receiver was offsides. The other running back behind him had a 16-yard run to the Green Bay 26, negated because of an offensive penalty. So those 2 penalties killed that drive. But also, Rob, we talked about it with Hoosh. They threw, and this is what we all said, right? When Dak gets back, you need to keep him essentially as a game manager. Of course, he can do more than Cooper Rush, but still, don't go Dak happy. And they did. He threw the ball 46 times, and Tony Pollard was having a field day.
Right, was running the football.
And all the running backs were. They ran for over 150 yards. Why in the world are you throwing? And this might be some of their thought process, which Rob, let's just cut to the chase, is downright ridiculous. Zeke wasn't there. Oh, if Zeke was there, we would have ran more. Because I've heard that
you already got 150 yards.
Thank you.
That's a big day. On any team, I don't care who's
Zeke
running.
hasn't looked that good, as good as Tony Pollard the last 2 weeks. I'm sorry, and I like Zeke, but I'm sorry, Pollard is better.
Chris, he's better. I don't know who they're trying to convince. He's better. Why don't they? The only reason, and I'm gonna say this. If it wasn't the money deal, Chris, come on. If he say Zeke was just the middle of the road pay scale, they would have gone the other way a long time ago. It's about money, and Jerry likes him. Let's just face it.
And what he did, I get it. He did. He looked like he was headed toward a tremendous
Hall of Fame career. Are you kidding?
Right.
In the beginning?
Yeah, and so I think there's a little of that. That's probably why Jerry liked him so much. And you're right, they're paying him the money. And we said it, Rob, last week after Pollard's great game. we said, look, you leave Zeke as the starter and, you give him his touches, but Pollard's got to get most of them. I don't want to upset the apple cart, right? I mean, Zeke, it appears that he is a leader and he's respected in that locker room. So, I mean, you got to have him on the field some. But Pollard, man, come on. I mean, how many games do we have to see? They're the same holes that were opened up for Zeke, and Pollard gets through them twice as fast.
Chris, this is why I don't believe in the Cowboys. And this is just over and over. How many times have we seen this where they go play, and the Packers aren't even a good team at this point? Right. That's the worst part.
Right. I mean, maybe they put it together, but still, at this point, you got to...
But Chris,
you got to kick them when they're down.
It would be different if the Packers came out and you weren't ready for them and they steamrolled you and they were up 28-0.
Right,
then you would be like, okay, like they were doing a big game, right? They would do one. Aaron Rodgers broke out, okay. But you were up 28-14. Like you were doing what you wanted to do. Like the Packers had to have a once in a lifetime comeback. I mean, we just talked about it.
That was aided by you.
Right.
No doubt. And you stole my thunder. I was going to say this, Rob. The Dallas Cowboys will not make the Super Bowl. Now, some might say, oh, wow, Captain Obvious. No, I don't think it's obvious because, the NFC's wide open. They're one of, 5 teams
that's
that
out there,
you like
available,
out there.
yep.
Right. But, Rob, they're good enough. They're good enough to make the Super Bowl. But I am convinced that in some way, shape, or form, they will self-destruct. They will self-sabotage. They could win a playoff. They'll make the playoffs. And I think they could win a game. But when push comes to shove, they'll rely too much on Dak, or the penalties will kill them, or Mike McCarthy may have some clock management issues or something, a bad call, whatever. There will be something.
You remember the playoffs
Jerry
last year.
will start running his mouth. Rob, what they talk about all week? OBJ. You weren't focused on the Packers. You're focused on freaking OBJ. Who started it? Jerry.
And who's not even ready to play. What are you worried about him for? You had a big game, Chris, to stay in lockstep with the Eagles and the Giants, and now it looks like you'll make the playoffs, but as a wild card, the division,
right.
You just gave up the division on that, Chris. You'll look back on the season and say you had a 28-14 lead in Green Bay, couldn't close the deal, couldn't snap the Packers' necks. That was their season, Chris. It was.
Yep. No doubt.
And
you had all that motivation for your coach. To win for him. I mean, I don't know if it was Dak. One of the players said they wanted to win for Mike. And, Rob, I'm not trying to go all Stephen A. up in here, but I'm sorry. The Dallas Cowboys are a soap opera. I've said that before. They will screw it up. They will screw it up. And I just want to say this, too. And I love Micah Parsons. He's awesome. But I do think I just think that we need to include me to some degree. I've said he might be the best. I said he reminds me of Lawrence Taylor. And everybody can have a bad game. LT had bad games, obviously. Everybody does. I'm just saying this, Rob. Can you be like the best defensive player in the league at the positions he plays, and you got like the 28th, 29th worst run defense in the league?
No.
Right? See, that's what I get it. They're great against the pass. They rush the quarterback well, but their run defense is paper mache.
Chris, they gave up. Who did they play the week before they gave up? Was it the Bears? Yeah. The Bears, right? Bears ran for 250 yards.
Yep.
Right. That was the Justin Fields coming out party.
Yep.
And he
broke a record, didn't he? 170 something yards.
And they had like 250 yards on the ground, and then the Packers had another 200 on you. 200 plus. You ain't win no Super Bowl giving up 200 yards on the ground.
No. Because Green Bay clearly was like, oh, we got one of the best quarterbacks ever, but you know what?
We don't need to do that. We'll run it. We said it. He threw 20 passes and beat you.
I wonder when the last time he threw 20 passes
and
in like
won
a full game. Yeah. I mean, so